This is Courage Barbell. I'm your host, Chad Ikes. On today's episode, we're going to go over some lower body stretching. But first, I feel like I need to kind of talk about stretching a little bit and explain why you should be doing this. First of all, I think that stretching is very underrated when it comes to strength. And that's something that I learned back in my high school and throwing days. And I would do a lot more research on Eastern Bloc stuff, and I always noticed that all the Eastern Bloc, the throwers, the weightlifters, like all their athletes were always very flexible, and that was actually an important part of their training, and I carried that over into powerlifting, where people would always be very surprised that at 385, 390 pounds, I could still do the splits, or, well, not a full split, but damn close, and I squatted 1,200 plus pounds. And people don't understand how that flexibility allows your muscle to function better. It keeps your muscles from getting hypertensive and knotted up and being tight. It allows for quicker, better recovery. If you think about it in terms of, hey, I'm trying to hit a position in my squat. If I can't hit that position because my adductors are tight or because my back's tight, I'm like working so hard just trying to get into the position. And that's energy expenditure that could be put into the lift. Like you should be able to hit your position easily. And then as you tighten up, you make it harder to get in that position and you help with the stretch reflex. But you're doing that because you're actually tightening your muscles. So there's these big fallacies of the stretch reflex and I want to be tight as hell, and like it doesn't work. That's going to leave you more susceptible to injury, which is another one. A more flexible muscle is less likely to be injured. Trust me, there is a great amount of strength and flexibility, and I see so many lifters that refuse to do this, even to the point of when I'm bench pressing, if I'm too tight in my chest to actually retract my scapula where I'm supposed to be, I'm making my movement longer. I can't retract my shoulders where they're supposed to be. I can't get my shoulders in the strongest position. I can't get my shoulders in the safest position, all because I won't take the time to stretch out my upper body. That being said, watch my upper body stretching video, which is a couple months older than this one's going to be, but you can check it out on this channel that you're apparently watching. Another thing is I see a lot of guys that are doing all these modalities just to be able to come in and squat or deadlift or train at all. They got to use the roller, they got to temper, they got to use one of the Accu balls or a tennis ball, and they do this whole routine before they can actually go in and squat. I'm 50 years old. I go in and do my winning warm-up, and then bam, I'm squatting. And sometimes I don't have time to do the warm-up, so I'm like, screw it, let's just start throwing plates on and I'll start squatting. A big part of the ability of me being able to do it is that I continue to stretch. And even if you're in the position where you need those modalities now, I'm willing to bet if you start stretching regularly, that will get you away from having to do that. That will get those muscles healed up. That will relax that hypertension. Like people want to do scraping and cupping and tempering and all this other shit when stretching will do it. Stretching's done it for years. Stretching has taken care of a bunch of that shit. People just don't want to do it. They're too lazy. And I'm going to admit right now, stretching sucks. I hate stretching. But it's so important and so crucial that if you want to be a big tough guy, badass, hardcore powerlifter, then stretch, because stretching sucks. The benefit is afterwards, I always feel much, much, much better. Now, when we are doing stretching, I have a standard time of 1 minute holds. The reason I do that is because the first, I think it's 15 to like 25 seconds is actually your Golgi tendon apparatus in your tendon and your muscle spindle fiber in your muscle are safety mechanisms. And they have to understand that you're stretching, so then they'll relax everything so that the stretch can actually start. It's a little bit of a long process. If you want to learn about it, research it. Look up Golgi tendon apparatus and muscle spindle fiber, and you can find a quick review of that on, I'm not going to cover it, but go to the internet, look it up. So if you've ever stretched before, which I'm hoping you have at least a couple times, say you get into a hamstring stretch and you're like, oh my God, it's so tight, it's so tight, it's so tight. And then you're like, oh, about 15 seconds in, all of a sudden it relaxes and you can go further. That's when the stretching actually starts. So I like to hold my stretches for 30 seconds to a minute. So you got to go 45 seconds to a minute because you don't even start stretching until those safety mechanisms in our muscles and tendons relax. Other than that, it's pretty easy. I'm going to go over these stretches, but remember, everybody's built, I mean, we have standard type anatomy and physiology, but everybody's a little bit different. And we may have developed our muscles in different ways, depending on, say, your quad. One part of your quad may be more developed than the other one. Maybe you worked it more one day. I'm going to tell you how to go over these, but remember, it's not so important that you follow my rules to a T. It's more important that you feel what I'm explaining you need to feel. So don't feel like if I say pull your knee to a 45 right here, that you have to pull to that exact 45. Pull to that 45, and if you don't feel it, move it around a little bit. Like change the direction. Maybe you get a better hamstring stretch with just a slight bend in the knee when I want your knee straight. Like feel free to adapt to what you need. We want to stretch the muscle out. I don't care if you follow my rules to a T. I care that you accomplish our goal, which is to stretch those muscles out, increase your mobility, increase your flexibility, and help you gain more strength. So that's pretty much it. I'm going to go ahead and go into my kind of standard stretching routine. Depending on how tight you are, you could actually do this every day. If you should be able to get through this whole thing in around 20 to 30 minutes. I end up going longer because I hate stretching and I'm kind of lazy. And once I get on the ground, I kind of slow things down. So I'm going to go through it pretty quickly. I'm not going to hold everything for a minute because I don't want this video to be that long. It's going to be long enough as it is. And that's about it. So let's get into it. One thing I do want to say is like you could do this every day, but if you do it 3 to 4 days a week, you're going to find you're going to increase your flexibility. Now, once you get to a flexibility level that you're happy with, you might only have to stretch once or twice a week and you'll maintain that level of flexibility. It takes more work putting in to gain the flexibility, and then maintaining the flexibility is actually pretty easy. I'm also going to shoot another video of more standard, like standing stretches that you could possibly do at work, or if you're a little tight in the morning, I'm going to give you some easy stretches where you don't have to get on the ground. All these stretches today are going to be on the ground. So let's do my usual cut, and we'll go to start the stretching. Okay, one of the first things I like to do when I get on the ground, just because I'm usually a little tight, which I benched the other day, so I am a little tight. I'm going to get my microphone out of the way, and I'm going to lay down here in a 90-90 position and just kind of let my upper body stretch out for a little bit. You should be able to easily go in this position and have your hands flop right on the floor. If you don't, check out my upper body stretching video. Okay, I'm going to move into what I call hip external and internal rotation. I'm a wide squatter and I like to pull sumo as well, although I can pull conventional. And my hips are usually pretty sore, so I'm going to do my right leg first, and I'm going to stick my foot out to the side, and then I'm going to drop this knee in. And I'm just going to pull the knee in, and I'm going to feel this stretch up here around the head of the femur and the socket of the pelvis. Stretching all these, there's so many muscles up in here, and I'm just trying to stretch them all out and get that knee, push that knee down towards the ground. And again, these are going to be 30 seconds to a minute. You're going to hear me say that a lot today, but for the sake of video, we're going to go through this quickly. And I'm going to drop this knee down. Next, I'm going to take my right leg, put my foot up on my left leg up here, and then we're going to drop the knee again down. So I'm just pulling my knee down towards the ground, feeling that stretch in my hip. And as you can see, I want to kind of shift like this, but I want to hold my body straight, keep my hips straight, and push that knee down. 30 seconds to a minute. Gonna come back over here, pushing that knee down, not letting this hip slide over to the side. So I want to feel it stretching up in here. Okay, then we're going to go to our hamstring stretch. This is probably one of the worst ones. By worst ones, I mean one of the best ones, but it kind of sucks. So I like to just grab my ankle, straighten the knee, and I'm going to pull it up. And because of my fat belly, I tend to want to go out here. So I really try to keep the legs straight. And I'm just letting it stretch. And I'm going to go through that first, I think it's 15 to 20 seconds. We're going to release, and then we're going to go further. We're just feeling that hamstring stretch like crazy. For you guys that can't grab your ankle like that, you can grab a band or a belt. When I wear my straps out, my dragging straps, I cut them in half. So I keep the loop. And then I'll just use the strap. Either way is fine. Again, I'm pulling the leg because I want to keep it straight. Okay, now we're going to move on to the glutes. So what we're going to do is I'm going to straighten my right leg, my left leg. I'm going to grab my knee and pull it across to my opposite shoulder. For me, this does no stretch at all. So what I like to do is I'll kick the left leg up a little bit, and I'll bring my right leg up and hook my knee. And now I'm going to push my knee up as I'm push my foot up. I'm pushing this foot up as I'm pulling this knee to the opposite shoulder. And you'll see this glute is trying to come up off the floor, but we want to try to keep the back flat on the floor and the glutes flat on the floor, but it's going to come up a little bit no matter what. Now, remember, this glute is a huge, broad, wide muscle. So if we pull in just one direction, we're not really hitting that whole muscle. And for me, depending on how my training has been, different parts of my glute may be sore than the other parts or stiffer than the other parts. So what I'll do is I'll pull directly across to the opposite shoulder, pull the leg up, let that one stretch a little bit. Then I'll pull the knee a little more up to, say, my chin, and we'll do the same thing. And again, if I have to grab this ankle and pull it closer down till I feel that stretch, and then maybe I need to go down past my shoulder a little bit and just change the direction so that we are stretching that whole glute through there. So I'm going to come up with this one, go across, come up, pull that knee out to the side. Same thing. And actually this glute is definitely a little bit tighter today than the other glute. And if I pull out here going past my shoulder, I'm getting a little better stretch. So I'll let that one stretch, and then I'll come up towards the shoulder, let that stretch a little bit. Then I'll come up towards the chin, let that stretch a little bit, and get that whole glute stretched out. Now we're going to go to, this is kind of a low back stretch, but it's also a stretch on the spine. A lot of power lifters, especially heavyweight power lifters, tend to stop stretching the rotation. and our spine is made to move and twist. And anytime we limit any range of motion, it eventually is going to come back and haunt us. So it's very important that powerlifters continue to do that rotation in their spine. So I'm going to bring my left leg up. I'm going to grab right behind my knee. Now I'm going to twist. Try to bring that knee as close to the ground as I can while I'm leaving my arm out. And this one gets kind of tough because if you have a big gut like me, you don't want to brace, but instead you want to exhale everything out of your midsection and let it really relax and stretch all the way through. And again, 30 seconds to a minute. And I'll exhale and let it stretch till I can't breathe. And maybe take another breath. Exhale again. Really try to get that stretch in there. And then we'll come back through, do the other side. Grabbing behind the knee. Coming across, and sometimes you'll have to kind of straighten yourself out a little bit. And I am a little tighter this direction. So normally if I was going through all of my stretches, I might try to hold this side a little bit longer than the other side. Exhaling. Okay, now we're going to do a quad hip flexor stretch. So we're going to get on our side, and the thing here is we want to make sure that we keep this hip perpendicular to the ground and not leaning back and not rolling too far forward. So I'm going to grab my ankle, and my first movement is going to be to get the thigh straight with my body, and then I'm going to try to take my heel to my butt and really stretch out that quad. And after I hold that for 30 seconds to a minute, then I'm going to try to pull that leg back. And I don't want to pull my hip like this backwards. I want to try to keep my hip forward and really stretch out that quad and the hip flexor. And then another thing is a lot of people will be up here like this. You want to try to get that thigh down and keep it straight with your body. And we'll roll over to the other side. Again, heel to butt, stretching that quad. And then we're going to take it and stretch that hip flexor. Okay, now we're sitting up. We got our legs spread out. And we're going to go back to stretching to add with the hamstrings plus the adductors. This right here is going to be one of my absolute favorite stretches. If you're having problems getting wide in the sumo and keeping your knees out, this is going to help you tremendously. If you're a wide squatter and you're having trouble at the bottom driving, keeping those knees out, this stretch is going to be your best friend. So one of the key things we're going to do here is we want to make sure we have that neutral low back arch. Okay, we don't want to be, my goal is not to see how far I can bend forward. My goal is to stretch my glutes and hamstrings and try to get as close to that position as I can in a squat. And we don't want to be flat or rounded back at the bottom of the squat. We want to maintain that neutral arch through the whole lift. So what I like to do is basically I'll kind of brace. I'll get in my neutral position right here, and I'm going to brace my belly, and I'm going to try to push my belly to the floor. So I'm not going, oh, I'm going to bend as far forward as I can. I want to bend as far forward as I can, maintaining this neutral back position. So I'm coming here, and your goal is to at least get on your elbows in still an arched position. And this is a good one if you're watching TV or something, or I have people like watch a movie or something and do the stretch and hold it for 3 to 4 minutes. And then come up and take a little breather, but maintain that arched position, and then come back down and go back into it for a couple more minutes, just stretching it out and pushing that belly to the ground. Keep pushing that belly to the ground. And you'll feel a ton of stretch in your hamstrings, a ton of stretch in your adductors. And that whole time, I'm really trying to keep that back as flat as possible. Now from here, we'll also get back in that neutral back position, and I want you to reach across, maintaining, and I'm trying to push this belly down into my thigh and into the floor still. And really maintaining that stretch. And then we'll go to the other side again, maintaining that arched position. Okay, now we're going to move into a QL stretch. So what our goal here is going to be is to keep the glutes on the floor, and we're going to twist to the side. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to take that spine, and if you have your pelvis here and you have your rib cage here, we're trying to expand and stretch the rib cage further away from that iliac crest on the pelvis. So I'm going to drop this arm in, this hand over, and I'm really trying to stretch out those QL muscles and expand, twist that spine, pulling that rib, those lower ribs away from the pelvis. And you probably also feel some oblique stretching as well. Again, 30 seconds to a minute. I'm just kind of going through these all faster so you guys don't have to watch me for so long. Then we're going to do the same thing. We're dropping this arm in. And we're coming out. And you'll feel when that glute wants to start coming up, really focus on keeping it down and letting it stretch. Stretching's a little bit of an art form in that, like I talked about earlier, it's about proprioception to the muscle that you want to stretch and feeling that muscle stretch. If you're not feeling the muscle stretch, either you're performing it incorrectly or you haven't found your own little tweak to where you can feel it. It's more important to me that you feel the right muscles and we're stretching the right muscles than you going, oh, am I doing it exactly like Chad said? Because I know I've been taught some stretches and I go, well, I don't feel that, so I tweak it. And like all these stretches here are all stretches that I've been taught and put my own twist on, because even back in high school, I was captain of the track team and I led all the stretches in the track team. So I'm going to do one more this way, and I will switch up how far my legs are. Sometimes I'll have my legs a little closer and I'll do a couple, then I'll move them out and do a couple. But I want you to be able to see that when I'm sitting here, I'm going to arch my back. I'm arching that low back, and then I'm going to bend forward. And I'm really trying to push that belly or the the lower spine into the floor. Like right now, I'm going to probably flatten a little bit because my belly's already on the floor, but I'm still trying to push it down and get it down there the whole way, keeping my back flat. Okay, at this point, we're going to roll over prone, and I'm going to get up on my elbows. I'm going to start on my elbows for a little bit, and what I want to do is I want to let my belly sink down into the floor and feel that low back arch. And I'm going to put my hands back, and I'm going to go into a push-up position. I'm going to push up as far as I can, and I'm going to pump this a little bit. Each time trying to go a little bit further, a little bit further. I usually do these in sets of 10, and then maybe go back to my elbows for a little bit. This stretch is really, really important because in today's society, we do so many things where we're leaning forward, and our low back is actually made to stretch backwards like this. It's made to be in that arched position. And when we have bad posture and we put ourselves in positions of leaning over a computer and we're not really focusing on keeping good posture, it's all pushing the nucleus of the discs to the back, which creates bulging discs and herniated discs. And this stretch right here kind of resets everything and gets that nucleus center in the vertebrae back to where it's supposed to be. So this is a stretch everybody should do, and most people that have some sort of back pain would find a lot of relief if they started doing this stretch. And then after I do some pushes, I want to get up here and really just push it up, and I'm pushing up as far as I can, and I'm letting that low back sink in. And then after it relaxes a little bit and I can bring my hands in, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to get up here and I'm going to root my hands, and I'm going to pull. I'm going to depress my shoulders with my lats and really squeeze in and get that stretch. Stretch that low back up. Or stretch that upper back up and get that big arch in that low back. And I might even do a little pump of it right there. And then come back down on my elbows. All right, another one I like to do, if you don't have issues with your quads, if they're pretty stretched out, this probably won't do much for you. But I find especially a lot of big guys have tight quads. So I like to do just sitting like when I was in karate. Like even right here, I can sit like this okay, but I'm getting a decent stretch through my vastus lateralis. And again, I'm trying to hold that arched position. I'm not letting my back round over. I want to stay up in the arched position, that neutral low back, and just letting that one stretch. Another good one, but it kind of sucks on this floor for me, but I'll demonstrate it anyway, is the frog stretch, or I think some people call it a combat frog, I don't know. Coming out here, and I like to be at almost a 90, and then again I'm getting that arched position. I'm not rounding my back. I'm at neutral low back arch, and then I'm going to push down. Oh, and this will really stretch out those adductors. And if you have problem hitting depth and keeping your knees out, this is a good stretch for that. And then I'll slide out a little bit after I stretch and come back into it. I might even go down to my elbows, maintaining that arch. And as you want to get in here and you start pushing it, your body will tend to want to do this and go into the hunch position. Force that low back. Keep that low back in neutral, and even brace if you have to keep that low back and get in there and push it out. That's one of my standard stretching routines right there. 20, 30 minutes maybe, depending on how focused you are on getting it done. There's a lot of times I have a yoga mat in my living room where if it's at the end of the day and I'm watching TV, I'm like, oh, I should do some stretching. So I'll lay down and do some stretching while I'm relaxing and trying to shut my mind off a little bit. Again, if you are really tight, do it 5 to 7 days a week. Once you get loosened up, drop down to 3 days a week. Once you get where you need to be, you can probably do it once or twice a week. I honestly don't stretch that much anymore, and you can see I'm not as flexible as I used to be, but I'm not too bad. And I'll go months without stretching right now, and I can still usually get to that point pretty quickly. I think you'll find it'll help with injuries. It's going to help with it's going to help not need so many of those modalities. It's definitely going to show in your technique because it's going to allow you to hit better positions easier so you can put more energy and focus into lifting the weight. It's going to help with hypertension, which I see so many lifters with hypertensive muscles. Stretching is going to help release them just like everything else does. You know, RPR, isometrics, magnesium gels, the cupping, the scraping, like all that stuff, the tempering. Stretching's been around forever and it works. That's why it's still around. That's why people still do it. And that's a big thing with athletes. Why do athletes stretch so much? And more than that, why do powerlifters not think that they're athletes? They're using their muscles, and their muscles need to move, and their muscles aren't moving as much doing a sport, so we need to keep them limber and flexible through stretching. Anyway, that's it. 30 seconds to a minute. That's an easy routine. Look for another video coming soon, which I actually might shoot right now, which will be some stretches that are standing that you can do at work or throughout your day. They're just easier to do without having to get on the floor. You can do them anywhere. And I'm going to leave you guys be. Catch you guys later. Give this shit a try. Give me a comment. Give me a like. Give me a subscribe. Hit the notification bell. Check out my Instagram, Chad Ikes. And please share this stuff. Please go to couragebarbell.com. Pick up some stickers, a shirt, some shorts, a water bottle, a hat, any of that kind of stuff, and support the channel, support me, and I'll be coming at you guys with more great information later. I'm out.